Welcome everyone to this episode of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts. It has been about 2 months since the last episode, and I want to quickly explain to you why. All of my energy recently has been put into the very first live event of the What's That Sound podcast, which took place on the 21st of November, and I'm stoked to say that it was a huge success. I had a lot of positive feedback about the event, and the first part of this two-part episode is the first part of the live event, and I am very excited to share that with you. Before we dive into that, I do have some exciting news to share. I'm not sure if you're keeping across our social media, but we have launched the very first What's That Sound merchandise. They are 2 t-shirts, a white and a black. You can see them here. I'll put them up on the screen. Aren't they beautiful? If you are interested in grabbing one of those t-shirts and supporting the podcast, the link is in the show notes, so you can jump straight into the web store and grab yourself a tee. If you're anywhere near Bundoora in Melbourne and you want to pick one up and don't want to pay shipping costs, you can let me know and you can come into the studios and pick one up. If merch isn't your thing, you can still make a donation. Every little bit counts, even if it's just as much as, the cost of a coffee, $5 or something like that. All of that helps to go towards supporting the podcast and, me putting on live events in the future and keeping this podcast running. So I greatly appreciate any donation that you want to make, or if you do want to pick up a piece of merchandise, thank you. All right, let's move into the actual episode. This is part 1 of the live event. It was hosted by myself. It was at Marshall Street Studios, like I said. It featured 3 guests, Anna Lavity, Nicholas DiLorenzo, and Becky Whitten, all who shared some amazing insights about their day-to-day, as well as, their personal opinions about how the music industry is going, what it looks like in the future, as well as things like client acquisition and communication and things like that. So it's unreal. I can't wait to share it with you. Let's go. You're listening to What's That Sound with your host, Stu Watts.
Tonight, we're bringing together some of the most knowledgeable and talented professionals in the industry to share their insights on building a sustainable career in music. They each bring a unique perspective shaped by years of experience and dedication, and I'd love to introduce them to you now. Anna Lavity is an award-winning producer who has established herself as one of Australia's top creative talents with a diverse catalogue of acclaimed releases across genres. Having trained under renowned producers Paul Epworth and Ben Hillier at London's Moloko Studios, where she worked on projects with Florence and the Machine, Block Party and Depeche Mode, Anna returned to Australia and quickly became a sought-after producer. She gained further recognition as a featured engineer on the ARIA-winning ABC series, The Recording Studio. Recently, she's worked with artists like Amanda Palmer, Camp Cope and Missy Higgins. Anna is also the founder of the Music Producers and Engineers Guild of Australia and is passionate about building community and ensuring that producers and engineers are represented within the wider music and arts industries. Please welcome Anna Lavity. Nicholas DiLorenzo is a Grammy-nominated mastering engineer and the owner at Panorama Mixing and Mastering. He cut his teeth as an assistant for Martin Pullen, working on the Deep Purple Made in Japan 40th anniversary re-release. And since opening Panorama in 2014, he's worked on over 4,000 projects for artists, labels and producers worldwide. He also runs a popular YouTube channel with over 34,000 subscribers and recently launched Panorama Academy, which offers advanced courses in mastering. Recently, he has mastered records that received both Grammy and Latin Grammy nominations. Please welcome Nicholas DiLorenzo. Becky Whitten is an engineer, songwriter and producer at Melbourne's Carriage Studio. She's known for her focus on capturing the emotional essence of each song. Nominated for ARIA, AWMA, MPEG, and Music Victoria Awards, Becky managed sound for Girls Rock Camp ACT from 2016 to 2022. Her electronic choral project, AFA, has been celebrated as part of Australia's new wave of female electronic innovators. With performances across Australia and internationally, her sixth LP, The Halo is Shapeless, was released in May 2023. During the pandemic, Becky embraced Twitch, live streaming her production and long-form vocal improvisations, one of which being a marathon 12-hour performance on Boxing Day of 2021. She also created the Wettest 100, an alternative to the Triple J's Hottest 100, celebrating left field Australian music. Please welcome Becky Whitten. Welcome. So to begin, I would love each of you to give us a rundown of what a generic workday looks like for each of you. So, Anna?
Hello. Every day looks different. Literally every day of my life is different to the one before and everyone that has gone before it. It's pretty crazy, but I think I have that kind of personality where if I had a job which was the same every day, I would want to die. So it suits me pretty well. Do you want to know a little bit about today?
Sure, go for it.
So today I live in Castlemaine, so I get up pretty early and I sort my children out and I get them to school and then I drove to Audrey Studios in Coburg and I worked from 10 till 5:30. I had to finish early today because I was coming here and then I came here and I'm talking to you fine people.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so my day is probably more the opposite because I'm pretty regimented with my day. That's just sort of my personality. So I'm up at 4:30 every morning, emails and admin until 7, because then from 7 to 7:30, it's kids, so getting them ready for daycare, school. Once they're done that, gym. Then after gym, from 10 o'clock onwards, it's sessions. And the reason why I wake up so early and I front load all my admin work is because I like to be home with the family. You know, if I'm working late hours like I did when I started out, it's not healthy, especially when you've got 3 kids. You really want to get as much time in with them. So, yeah, my day's built around my lifestyle with the family and everything.
I don't have kids, so I get up at like 11:30 a.m. and mix a gin martini.
Fuck you.
No, that's only every so often. I'm pretty similar, I would say, to Anna in that my days are pretty different from one another. I wear a lot of different hats, so I mix, master and produce and sometimes record vocals for people. And all of those things look different from each other and tend to happen in different places, so it's a real variety.
Great. And how do each of you get inspired to work?
Well, I just really love music. I know that's a very simplistic way of putting it, but it doesn't take much. And if I am feeling unmotivated, like I don't want to work, I usually go to an art gallery. I know that's not music, but especially the way things are in the world at the moment, I can become very easily overwhelmed by that. Well, actually, I don't think that is easily overwhelmed. I think there's just a lot going on, so I'm very overwhelmed. And sometimes I just need to go to an art gallery, and that really grounds me in that there has been, throughout all of history, there's been people who've dedicated their life to art, and I just want to be one of them. That's what brings me back to it.
That's
Love that,
so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Love that. Nick?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm the same when it comes to music. It's like every day you're unwrapping a new present because you never know what's going to jump in your email, what song's going to be there. So that's the beauty of it. The same, sometimes you can feel uninspired. Things are happening out in your outside life which can demotivate you. For me, I wish I was as beautiful to be like, I go to the art gallery. That's not me. I usually just, I'll either call my wife, I'll call Stu, I'll bother him. I'll go, Stu, this is shitting me. And I can't, and just the other week I called him. And that's sort of my thing. That's my, and I'm the same for other people. They can always call me, but that's my way of getting a fresh perspective, because often we get in our own heads and then I'm back to it and I'm in the game and I'm back to where I need to be.
Yeah, dope. I think, having people to bounce off is important. People to get you out of any, like if you do get into a loop in your brain where you're self-critiquing or things like this, having people to bounce off. I feel like for me, there's a relationship between like music that I make in my own artist project and stuff that I help other people to finesse or to create. I think that having a good balance of each of those helps to keep me inspired. And that's been the same for as long as I've been doing this, really.
Do any of you, well, I guess, Becky, with that, do you have a specific thing that it takes you to get you into the mood? Like, you know, you're working on your own stuff compared to working on someone else's. How does it differ?
I think that as long as in my life there's a pretty even distribution between those two things, working on other people's stuff is a source of inspiration for me with my own stuff, in that like often there'll be like something in work that other people have done that I'm like, I like this idea, I want to explore some type of thing like this in my own work. Or I'm like, this is so different from what I would personally make and I can't wait to get back to making the stuff that I love, you know? And then I guess working on my own stuff, often it's like you can go into a real rabbit hole of just self-critique or being too in your own universe, and working on other people's music can really cleanse your palette from that whole world, give you a totally different perspective.
Yeah, I think anyone that works on their own music has probably got hard drives full of 1.5 minute songs that are just unfinished. Like it's pretty standard. And I think like waking up in the morning and being like, I can't believe that this is my life, you know, like being able to work on something as cool as music is always, for me, like so inspiring. And just, if anything's worrying me, it's just like, I get to work on music. This is sick. Like, you know, and if some things are harder than others, and of course you got to work through them, but being able to work on music is just like, it's unreal. So love that. I guess when it comes to client acquisition, I want to move into that. Is there, obviously one thing that's the most easy way to gain a client is word of mouth. But when it comes to things that aren't word of mouth, how does that come to each of you? Maybe Nick, if you'd like to start.
Oops. There we are. So something for me when it's talking client acquisition and getting clients in the door, for mastering it's really important because it's predominantly a volume business. We won't work on 10 albums for the year and call it a day. There's hundreds, if not close to 1,000 projects hitting the door in 12 months. So for me, from the get-go, you have to differentiate yourself, and the best way to do that is through the pedigree of your work. There's a book called Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday. It's a marketing book, but he talks about you can't market a shit product. So every time I get into the studio, I'm working on something, I'm pushing myself, trying new things. I'm really trying to make it so that I deliver not just what's acceptable, but how do I put this?
Exceptional.
Exceptional, exceeds my expectations, exceeds my clients' expectations, and then the whole word of mouth thing. They should want to scream your name. They should want to go Nick or Joe or Tom or Adam, who's here, who's a great mastering engineer too. They're the best. We want to work with him on our next record because they did such a great job. So that's the sort of premise of, I know it's sort of the clients who are already there, but that's the foundation. If you don't have that, you got nothing. And then from there on social media, I'll tag everybody on a record, all the producers, the songwriters, everything is guilt by association, that visibility. People see the record you're working on, who you're working with, and they align the values of the record and those people on it alongside your work as well. And that sort of is like a flywheel that cycles the growth of at least my work in my career.
How do you acquire clients?
I go into back alleys late at night. It's a good question. I feel like for me, a lot of what I do is attached to like a local scene, perhaps. I mean, not even just local, but I work with a lot of like-minded artists around Australia, and because I make music too, I think, you know, touring my stuff has put me in a position where I've been able to meet other artists whose work I really click with. I have put on a lot of shows over the years that I've been working, and I helped to run an artist collective called Provenance, which is also like a lot of artists who kind of come together and, you know, we listen to each other's work and we give each other feedback and have that kind of discourse. And I think all that stuff probably helps. I mean, I don't know it helps because I feel like at the end of the day it feels like word of mouth, you know, that's the thing that's doing everything. But yeah, I think it's important to like have a website as well, have social media, those kinds of things. But also like, I guess it is comforting to know that if you really fucking hate social media, you probably can not be on it if you're in a grassroots scene and playing lots of shows, you know, or being at lots of shows.
Well, let's talk that through. Like, what are some of the ways that you've found aside from social media? I mean, I know you've been doing it for quite a while now, and you started without social media, and has that kind of trickled into?
I had MySpace.
MySpace, yep, unreal.
No,
did that help your marketing?
I don't know. I have been doing this for a long time, and I'm the same as you, Becky. I went to gigs every night from when I was 16 years old until I was 36 years old, you know. And I just know a lot of people in bands because I like their bands, and we hang out. They're my friends. And then pretty much all the work I get is word of mouth. Sorry, I know you said other than word of mouth,
fine.
but it's often repeat clientele, not necessarily from the same band, but it is a small world. People who are musicians forever, and they're in lots of different bands throughout their career. So like a really great example of how I started getting my own work as a producer as opposed to an engineer for someone else, or because I kind of came up in the traditional assistant route in studios, and so I was getting heaps of work as an assistant. But then making that transition is really, really hard. And the way that I kind of did that was, so I always remember, because I was in London for a long time, and then when I moved to Australia, I didn't know anyone, so I went to the bottom of the food chain again, and I had to start building my way up. And I was working on a record with Little Red, this band called Little Red, because they had the budget to go to Sing Sing, because their song was like number one on Hottest 100, blah, 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 all that stuff, yeah. So I was assisting on that. And the band broke up mid-session because it was just all too much pressure.
Wow.
And they, like, literally, this is a hilarious story, but this is how it worked for me. They broke up, the label pulled the funding, but the independent kind of joined onto Mushroom, which was Liberation, so they could have a little bit of money, but not under that name. So they released an EP instead of an LP called New Gods, and the producer who was working on it by that stage was about to have twins. His wife was about to have twins, and so he said, I can only work till 5 o'clock every night. If I give you an extra $100 a day on top of your $100 a day, will you work from 9 until when the band want to work till? And I was like, great, no worries. So I ended up working from 9 till 3 for $200 a day, but I got production credits.
Yeah.
Right. And then and then that band broke up, and then Dom was in a different band, and then they would call me because they knew that I knew how to do the stuff, and that's how it worked for me.
And so much of it is just about saying yes to things.
Being in the right place at the right time and being ready and saying yes.
I mean, the music industry and the landscape, I mean, Australia's kind of strange in that it's so small, but everything changes so quickly, especially these days. How do you all adjust to that? Do you have to adjust, or is it you're staying on top of it? Social media, everything the way that things are. Do you have to adjust your business and the way you do things, or is it just keep going as business as usual?
I think it depends. I think sometimes an adjustment might feel necessary, and sometimes it's good to stick to your guns. I think it's good to approach music, but life in general, with an attitude of curiosity. I mean, like, what I'm saying there is I hate my life the least when I'm approaching life with an attitude of curiosity. So if if I am keeping my eyes open for new ways that things might happen, new processes I might be able to use, or new ways that I might be able to interact with people who are interested in my music or my production, then sometimes I can come across a gem that feels comfortable for me and that I like. Sometimes TikTok rules the world and mediocre content washes the entire internet stratosphere. There's like good things and bad things.
I would say in our industry, if you don't sort of keep up with the technology, though, and I've seen this happen, if you really refuse to keep up with the technology changes, you do get left behind. And I have seen that with guys, like they have been amazing producers or mixers, but they don't enjoy certain processes that are new, and so they sort of go, I'd rather be doing something else than doing it this way now, and so they move on to something else. I have seen that over the years.
Yeah. Right, and we're here to talk about building a career in music, and that requires you to look at your music career as a business as well, and that with that comes things like unsexy things like taxes and profit and loss statements and super and things like that. Why are those things not talked about, and how important are they?
They are very important. You realise it when you get a little bit older. We at the Guild are actually trying to educate people around the importance of keeping up with that stuff, because I know so many musicians and producers and engineers who get a massive tax bill. And that's devastating for some people. So yeah, it is really important. But if you're not making a lot of money, you're not going to get taxed a lot of money. So you only have to worry about it if you're raking in loads of money and then you're not putting any of it aside.
And we're all like creatives and artists, and so we're not talking about money, but
No, we do have to talk about money. Yeah, you do have to, especially when you have like things like responsibilities.
Who wants them? And what are each of your processes for getting paid? Because, again, it's not something that's really talked about, and it can be so tough in the first 2, 3, even 5 years of, like, how do I actually get paid for a project, and doing it consistently and things like that. What are each of your processes?
Remember to send the invoice.
It's a good one. Nick?
I think having at least a standard operating procedure or something that you can look to and you're firm with is really important. And it's just simple as getting a pen and paper and going, this is how much I charge, this is when I want to get paid, but just internally. So that way you can have at least the minimum standard you meet to. For myself, I've got my own standards. So anything under 800 is 100% upfront. Anything 800 to $2,000 is 50% booking, 50% on delivery, and then anything $2,000 over, I space it out into 50% booking, 25% in 3 months, 25% in 6, and I stick strongly to that. And as long as you internalise it, you figure it out. It looks different for everybody, and then when you're engaging with the client based on the project, you're upfront about it with them, and everybody's on the same page. You don't bother about it down the line. You just run the show as it needs to.
Yeah, I do 50% up front, 50% at the end.
Becky?
I mean, I guess that summarizes it as like clarity and timing, making sure that you're clear about what you charge and what the schedule's going to be, and saying it when you're negotiating the initial bookings.
And moving into the actual production or engineering process, similar to with your finances, you do have to be quite rigid with things. when in a production or a tracking session or anything like that, when is it important to be very rigid with the way you do things, and when is it important to be flexible?
Always flexible, I would say, for me.
Can you expand on that?
Everything that you plan will get a curveball, so you have to be ready to like maneuver around that. Yeah, it's funny. I would say I'm just always, I'll take whatever comes. Like even just today, like we were going to do a whole day of tracking vocals, and she turned up and couldn't sing because she had a frog in her throat. So it's like
happens pretty regularly.
Then I guess.
Becky?
I would say that this is definitely one of the careers where flexibility is like most crucial. I when I saw this question on the list that you sent us, I was like, oh yeah, it's probably a balance, but I'm trying to now think of times when I have felt like rigidity has been the best thing, and I'm coming up a blank. So yeah, I'm going to say flexibility is the ticket.
I think sometimes as well you have to kind of check your ego with that stuff, because you want to do things a certain way, but the other people in the room that are paying you maybe don't want to do it that way. And even though you know that's the right way to do it, you've just got to go, fuck it, let's do it their way. It won't work, and then we'll do it my way.
That's the thing. You can't. You can't predict the.
I wasn't actually trying to be funny there. Yeah, it's true.
You can't predict the personalities you're going to come across, and that's where you have to just be open to take what happens. And unless you've worked with them 10 times or something like that, you start to. It's like that. It takes that long, years of working with someone to actually uncover like what they're actually passionate about, what their interests are. Like it can take just such a long time, so you just have to be able to roll with the punches, like you both said. I want to dive into social media a little bit. We all know that the world we live in is social media driven. How important is it to each of you that you're active on socials? I'm going to start with Nick, because a lot of your business is based on social media.
So social media is very dangerous because I have a YouTube channel which I run, and it started as this project where I'm going to copy all the top guys. I'm going to do a how-to list, 5, this, that, and I'm going to get lots of views. It's going to be great, and I'm going to keep doing that sort of stuff. And it was flopping, and I quit it. And then eventually I just said, you know what? I'm just going to do this for me, the stuff which I enjoyed, the stuff that I liked. And then people actually gravitated towards it, because the beautiful thing about social media is people have great bullshit meters. They can sense it. They can sense when something's contrived and put together and whatnot. So how, going back to the question, how important it is for my business, it was meant to be when I started. It was meant to be this pillar for my business. Now it's its own thing. It's my hobby. It's like what it is to you when you're doing your own music projects. That's what it is to me. So it's like my creative outlet to just go there, do my thing. And a natural byproduct is that it has fed into my business, but not through the intention of, I'm going to, architect this thing and I'm going to get these clients because they're going to see this. So far away from it.
I think at the start, when you start doing it, you feel like you have to do it a certain way. You have to present yourself the way everyone else presents yourself. But in music especially, it's people's individual personalities that make things special. And so only really in the last year or so, or 2 years, it's like, let's make it fun. Like you said, like it's a source of creativity. It's an output. It's like, it's something that you can do to build a world, maybe, and yeah. So I'm on board with you in that one. Do either of you two have anything to add to the social media train?
I could say something about social media. It's really funny. I think maybe I don't actually know how old people are, but my social media was just my friends. It really just was my friends, but my friends were people in bands. And so then I would just, I'm talking like Facebook, I would just post things that I was doing and people would be like, that's so cool, whatever. And then I had an Instagram, but it was private and I only had my friends and family on it. And then about 3 years ago, my manager was like, oh, you should post more shit, what you do. And so I deleted all the photos of, me doing normal stuff. And it's now only photos of me at work, and I opened it up and I guess people follow it But it's really weird, but I guess part of my branding, and it was never intended that way, was that I'm very approachable and I am friends with a lot of the people that follow me on social media. And when you're around for longer, you get more followers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not strategic at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Becky?
And I just quit X because,
Yeah, I never joined
I
that.
will never forgive Elon Musk. Oh, I loved Twitter so much. Anyway, I enjoy social media. I guess I have a love-hate relationship with it because there's like ways that I think I am the old dude in the music industry that you described earlier, Anna, who doesn't like move with the times with tech except with like social media. There's like a specific era of Instagram that I loved.
The filters.
Like pre-reels, like I loved, the heyday of the Q&A in the stories. Like that was great. Reels are just so like there's just a lot of terrible shit out there now. But I don't know. I like to engage with social media. I probably sink too much time into it. And I think that probably it naturally integrates with aspects of my career because I'm just sort of existing on there to some extent.
And I guess, I'll ask it in a slightly different way. How much does the business depend on it? I'm guessing nothing.
Not at all.
Yep.
Oh, well, I don't think, not that I know of. It's not like I can measure the, how would
metrics?
You say it? That.
Sweet.
And
my social media's become a separate business. So the YouTube channel's its own thing, separate.
Yep.
And that just serendipitously.
I'm sure some people might like to know about the actual creation process and what systems you might have in place when you're doing it the way that you do it.
Yeah, so I have a database tool called Notion, and there's like drafts and ideas and research and stuff, because I'll be working on a session like we all do, and then we'll come across some cool feature or something we really enjoy, and I'll just write it down in there. And then behind there I've got, a whole bunch of formatting for myself, so that way I can, if I'm assessing a plugin that I really love, I'll go in a plugin doctor and I go, well, I got to look at the Hammerstein graph, I got to look at the frequency response, I got to level match it, I got to look at other tools, and that's the more curiosity in my mind, going, how is this put together? And then I'll put something together. But in the same respect, I've got a camera and a key light set off to the side of the studio, and if something magical happens in a session, I skip the whole process. I click record. I don't edit. I just click record, bump it out, and send it out to the world. So, yeah.
I love that.
That's a really...
I got to watch some of this stuff. It sounds amazing.
I would say all the planning and all that stuff you can throw out the window, but the best investment is, for me at least, was just having a camera that was wired up and ready to go at the click of a finger. Even I went down to the detail of matching the key light to the lights in the studio so I don't have to colour grade. So it's straight out of the camera, and I don't want to deal with anything cut out.
I love that. Yep. Yeah, I want to talk about the results of the very first MPEG survey, which was quite confronting. Some of the concerns, like things like we talked about finances already, not being credited correctly, burnout, things like that. But one of the huge issues is the lack of diversity in the Australian producer community, with 85% of people identifying as male. And I want to know what ways we can combat this and aim for more diversity.
Well, it's funny because 85% is actually low, compared to the statistics 8 years ago, it was 2% female. So 15 is, or 15 would be female or non-binary, is exceptionally high. And I do think that is so high because I run the guild, and so all the women in the Australian community probably joined up pretty early on. It's a funny one, isn't it? It's getting better.
In terms of concrete things that can happen to help to change it, I think a lot of it is on men in positions where they have resources to allow people who aren't cis men to be having access to those resources for free or cheap, and creating an environment that's not shitty to be in also.
Yeah, that's a big one. A safe environment, a safe space, and not just offering places to work or environments, but just support and help and speaking out if there are dodgy things being said. I find all that stuff is really helpful.
Yep, absolutely.
It's also kind of, I think, this is something that I've been thinking about recently, like talking to a few women who are like trying to break into being producers and get their start. A lot of it's on artist teams to consider taking them on because, you know, there'll be like artists that people like new producers want to work with, and the contact is gatekept by like men in A&R or managerial positions. So.
I am never hired by major labels ever. I am not in the A&R phone book apparently. So all my jobs come from people in bands, all of them.
I don't have any words.
I've never been employed by EMI. I've never been employed by Universal. I've never been employed by any of those people.
That blows my mind. Like, yeah. Well, I guess where do we think the music industry is headed? You know, we talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Like AI has come into play. Like it's a
Down
crazy
the toilet.
topic. Like down the toilet.
No, that's a joke.
Serious or not?
Help a sister out.
This is a question I got when I was did my admission into my uni course. Where do you think the music industry is going? And I probably wrote some academic bullshit, but something I've learned in 10 years is trying to predict is you know, you can sometimes see where things are going, like with AI and certain, especially plugins like smart plugins. The company's literally called Smart. Like they got this like back end, really weird sort of stuff like Soothe and all those like technology developing. You're conscious that technology is going to develop in a sense, but the industry itself, going back to your rigid, flexible question, be flexible. Don't try and predict the future. Just be like water. You know what I mean? Like if something's coming, be open to new ideas, be open to new opportunities, and that's probably going to serve you better than, you know, try. It's like Russian roulette. You know, if you put your money down and you're wrong, you just waste a bunch of time.
That's it. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Time wasted. Yeah.
And also emotional energy that can be expended on worrying about that stuff. Like when I was doing my first internship, my boss was so stressed about every new twist and turn that the industry took, and like it can really burn you out. You don't have to worry about that stuff. You can just watch it, have that curiosity.
Just watch it burn from afar.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, as well, at the end of the day, it's what's in your control. Like, what do you have control over when you're working with people, when you're working on projects, when you're working with plugins? Like, what do you have control over? If it falls outside of that scope, it's kind of like... I mean, you've got to think about it.
Everything that you all just said is so true for me. And, like, this is something I learnt, I don't know, 10 years ago, is diversifying your income. So don't just rely totally on making all your money from recording bands. Like, try to make some money somewhere else so that when it does burn to the ground, you won't be homeless.
Or if it just has a little quiet patch, you know?
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
it will.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, there are quiet patches, yeah.
I guess the last question for this section of the night, I would love to each one of you to give advice to your younger self. Classic question.
Someone else go.
Get therapy. Like, this is, like, I knew that this would be taken as a joke, but, like, it's so serious. I think everything, when I look back on anything that held me back when I was starting my career, pretty much all of it was just, like, weird fear and defensiveness that come from, like, not having confronted things that therapy makes you confront. And to do that kind of work, I think that will serve you better than any, leveling up at plugins. Like you can do that a lot more peacefully if your internal landscape is calm,
I think that ties into one of the early questions of how do you get inspired. For me, it's like you're making sure that you said you go to the gym at 10 a.m. every day. It's like stuff like that. It's like you just have to make sure that you're doing the things that make you able to do the other things that your job needs you to do.
I will say, just to surface on a topic you said, we don't often talk about it in the music industry, but therapy, there's no shame in reaching out to somebody or going to see someone. I've done it myself and it's healthy. It's a very healthy, normal thing. There's no shame associated with it. So I would say, like if you're ever in down, there's always resources. You can always find something for yourself. And back to the question, me as my younger self, the one thing I tell myself is keep making lots of mistakes. The mistakes are the best. You learn. Because I was really, really young. How young was I? I would have been 20, 21 when I opened my space. And I was ignorant. I was dumb. I was silly. And yeah, I made lots and lots of mistakes. And it's and I wish I made a lot more because that's the only way you learn and grow. And yeah, I was, now I'm a bit more reserved in how I navigate my business because I got, family things. But when I started out, I was pretty reckless and silly, which is good because it taught me fast.
I'm going to speak further to that also. In Australia, we're lucky enough to have an amazing organisation called Support Act, and they offer free counselling services to all people in the Australian music industry, including music producers and sound engineers. So reach out if you ever need help. What I wish I had known when I was younger is my own worth. I think I worked for way too long for way too little because I was always trying to prove that I was meant to be there. And now when I look back on how hard I worked, how much I worked, how good I was, and that I really probably was quite taken advantage of for a long time because I wasn't asking for what I was worth.
Was there something specifically that made you encounter that and make a change?
Yes, I got a manager. So Kath Harity approached me and said, I think you got a bright future, kid. And we went out for lunch and she said, how much are you charging? And I said, $150 a day. And she said, we're going to double it. And I was like, no way, there's no way anybody will pay that. And of course, nobody ever questioned it. And then a couple of years later, she goes, we're going to double your fee again. And I was like, no way, absolutely not. I'll have no work. And no one has ever questioned it. And yeah, it's just, I would never have done that myself, ever.
On that, just before we go to the Q&A, you gave me a very specific bit of advice when we had a sit down and talked about finances. Do you remember what that was when it came to actually pricing and it was about time, how...
Refresh my memory because I've had so many discussions.
Yeah, sure.
It's inspirational constantly, so...
It was basically what increasing your pricing allows you is the gift of time.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Look, you've got a finite amount of time and you've got a value of, you got to put a value to it that represents what you bring to the party. If you do one day $150, and then you're going to get filled up really quickly with a whole bunch of projects. Some you might like, some you might not.
I was so busy.
Yeah, but you double it.
And poor.
You double it.
Yeah.
You might lose 25% of your work. So you buy back 25% of free time for you to focus on other things of building value, and you're still making more bank, but you can use that other 25% of time to build other things. So we don't realise it because you were talking about. I think you said something like didn't know for myself to ask for more at the time.
I just never would have thought about it. I was too busy.
Yeah. The thing is, there's a lot of leverage we have as professionals, not to manipulate a situation badly, but in terms of we've got a skill set, okay? It's not like it's a good skill set which people want access to, okay? And when people enter the conversation to chat with you about a project or be like, hey, I really want to work with Anna or really want to work with so-and-so, and they approach you, they're half already made up their mind in their head that that's the person that's going to be working with. And yeah, if they really want to work with you, you can demand a price that's equitable. It's not about price gouging. It's about having an equitable exchange. And part of that is making sure you're taken care of. So, yeah.
When I turned 40, a producer who I'd worked with a lot when I was really young, we met up in London for lunch, and I went along and he gave me a present for my 40th birthday, and it was a really lovely present. And I opened it and I was like, no way, I can't accept this. And he said, it's for all the $100 days. And I was like, all right, I'm taking it.
All right, that's the end of part 1 of the very first What's That Sound live edition of the podcast. Thanks again to Anna, Nick and Becky for being amazing and sharing their honest insights into what it's like in the Australian music industry. Thank you for checking this out. If you love what I do here, please chuck us a follow or subscribe on the podcast platforms as well as the socials that you're checking all of this out on. It means the world to me, and if you can share it around, that just does a little bit to help spread the word about the podcast and get it out to as many people as possible. Thank you again. Stay tuned for episode 2, which is out next week, which is the audience Q&A section of the live event. We will see you then. Thanks for listening to What's That Sound? Make sure you hit follow or subscribe on your podcast platform to stay up to date with each new episode. We'll catch you next time.